Hey there guys, it is Tom here on the behalf of Indestructible Productions with another Scum guitar build video. This time we're starting to tackle the inlays. So this is going to include both the fretboard inlays and the back inlays. Now, originally I planned to do a very long episode on this topic, but due to, once again, time constraints and stuff like that, I'm forced to split this up into pieces. I'll see if I can make these a little more logical. Now, starting off right here, I am prepping the piece that I am making. So this is a piece of flame maple that I'm turning into the fretboard inlays. Now this needs to be, God, I can't remember how many mil, like it's literally very minimal. I think it's like 3 mil or something like that. 2 mil even, might be. And to do that, I can't exactly put it through a thicknesser. And, you know, the fact that it's so small, I can't put it through a thicknesser. So I'm going to go ahead and use the Axminster drum sander, which is amazing for this sort of things. That's another machine that I'm missing quite dearly. I love that thing. So, pretty much good old super glue and masking tape trick to hold it in place on this piece of MDF. I'm just doing this so that I can be certain that it doesn't get ripped to shreds when I put it through the drum sander. And here is the back inlay blank that I prepared earlier. Basically, I just glued it together, put in some alkaline glue in the middle of the joint of this piece of ebony and flame maple, and then use masking tape to pull it together instead of clamps and stuff like that. So that's going to get the same treatment. And here we are with the drum sander. Basically taking away very, very small, going down in small increments and taking away very little at a time. Both because the machine likes to work that way, and both because that's a little easier and leaves a better finish for me, and also safer. Yeah. Also doesn't clog up the machine all that bad. Doesn't stress it up either. Stress it either. It's hard to say words today for some reason. And yes, be mindful that you don't put your fingers in there, because they will turn to mush very, very quickly. And then the back inlay blank. I believe I'm starting off with something that's about 8 mil, I think, or something like that. I'm gonna get it closer down to 4. I think in the end, the inlay was about 4 mil thick. So right now I'm probably taking it down to like 6 or something, because it's really the rough stage, so to speak. Main thing is to just get it nice and flat on both sides and an even thickness. Just trying to see which side I want to keep upright. Take very little material off that, and then take away from the quote-unquote worst looking side. All right. Now, I just need to actually mark out my circle.
Hopefully, roughly.
There we go. It's fairly straightforward, really. I just need to really make sure that I'm in the middle, exact middle of that line, because otherwise my circle will not be perfectly centered. There we are. Now I have a good line to follow. And you know what's coming up next, don't you? Bandsawing. Now, bandsawing a circle is actually fairly easy. Once you actually get the stride of it, it's just very easy to keep that radius going. I was a little nervous about doing this first thing in the morning. Like literally I got to the workshop earlier. Just to kind of do this first thing in the morning before getting the day underway. This is now starting to be at the part of my working life at Crimson, where basically half of the time I'll be working on Crimson things, Crimson guitars, and the other half of the time I'm basically working on this Scum guitar. It basically just agreed upon that I'm more or less paying for my workbench time by working on Crimson guitars. I'm just going to speed this up real quick, because otherwise it will take forever. Yeah, so that did work out fairly well for me, that sort of arrangement, because it, you know, made sure that I could keep on working on this guitar and not have to worry about coming back home and not being able to finish. So this has to be somewhere like toward the end of April. So next up is of course fine-tuning that edge, because I didn't go all the way to the line on the bandsaw just because it doesn't make sense for me to do that, and there is a high risk of me screwing it up. So I went as close to the edge as I could, and then just using a leveling beam on its side to kind of work my way to the line I drew. Of course, there are faster methods of doing this. I also have a couple of different grits that I'm using here, but this is ensuring that my edge also stays very square by doing it this way. But I still have way too much to go, so I think that I'm going to just ease it along with a fret leveling file. Now, a very interesting thing about this file, this is one of the first files that Ben sent out to customers. I managed to snag myself one of the very first ones that he sold, and I did the first Crimson Guitars tool review on YouTube, which is fairly interesting, considering that the review went very well. I just didn't know really what I was doing, so I leveled the frets to complete hell, to be very honest, and just recently refretted the guitar that I used this file on. But that's how we learn. I still use it every time I make a guitar. It's a very, very lovely file. I do like it a lot. So this is just to get, you know, roughly closer to the edge, and then I move back to the fret leveling beam, and I don't show because I technically already showed that part. Now, as for the fretboard inlays, I drew them up in Photoshop, sent them to Sam, he did the tool paths, and now it's just a matter of cutting them out. Initially the first ones were way too small, ran out of time to redo the tool paths, so I had to do them by hand, which you will see soon. And the whole idea here was that it's split into, if I remember correctly, 3 different sizes. So it's frets, let's see, because I had an inlay on the first fret. I think it's 1st to 5th have the first size, and then they get incrementally smaller the further up the fretboard you go. So I thought that was a cool idea to have incorporated in there, because it just kind of makes sense to me. The gaps between frets get smaller, so it just makes sense to make the dot or the inlays themselves smaller along the way. Just a little extra added detail. inspecting everything, looking good. Then, going in with a scalpel blade and just making all those grooves a little bit deeper. We used a fairly small cutter for this, and the ones closer to the camera, as you can tell, well, you really can't tell what they're supposed to be, so those ones ended up being way too small. So, you know, 3 out of 4, that's not too bad. I decided to go one bigger than for the first few frets. But yeah, cleaning up with the scalpel to get the lines a little bit neater. And then scraping off some ebony. Now there are very different ways of actually getting ebony dust. You can use sandpaper, but I don't like to do that because you get some of the sandpaper grit in there. By using a file, I am only getting the wood dust, and that's all I really want in this. I don't want any excess crap, so to speak. So with that done, I move on to, of course, use super glue and the dust together to fill up these inlays. That way I get the design I want out of them. It was a very long process where we were trying to come up with what inlays to use on the fretboard. The client was not all that partial to fretboard inlays in the first place, so he just kind of gave me full reign as long as it made sense and looked nice. Free reign, there we go. And this small little emblem was something that I picked out on one of the Delane album covers. It was just a small little detail on the album cover, and I thought that it would be cool to incorporate that in this very much Delane inspired guitar. Now, I had a free weekend with nothing planned, so the entire weekend I spent at home carving guitar necks and doing these inlays. And yeah, just very important to have a very, very new, sharp scalpel blade, so you actually can do intricate stuff like this. I made a whole bunch, and I picked the ones that were, of course, the most symmetrical, because as you can tell, not all of these are. So I picked the best of the bunch, so to speak, and fine-tuned them so that they were good enough. Well, fine-tuned them so that they were good, not good enough. Good enough is not good enough. And again, getting out some ebony dust. It's tedious work, but work that needs done. I didn't mind. I was having a nice weekend. It was nice sunny weather outside, so the sun's shining in, lots of natural light. I was watching, I'm pretty sure watching Mythbusters and just doing guitar work. It was nice, relaxing, very therapeutic. And I'm using an old scalpel blade to kind of push the glue and dust together into the cavities. And yes, my finger as well, getting them covered completely in super glue. Now this was fun and frightening all at once. Removing the piece of maple from the masking tape. It actually took a fair bit of doing, which shows you just how strong the masking tape and super glue trick really is. It's taken me quite a lot of effort to do this. There we are. Moving on, of course, cutting all of them out one by one and then fine-tuning. As you can see, Scum is all the way back over there, ready for some inlays. And behind that, that's the throwback baritone. And all the boxes and stuff. This is already once I've kind of started packing all my belongings in preparation for the move back. So everything is a bit of a mess. And of course, this is sped up. I am not this fast at cutting these things out, but boy, do I wish I was. It's tedious work. and then of course using some small needle files to fine-tune the shapes into exactly the right kind of shapes that I want them to be. And even smaller needle files to get into corners that the big ones didn't fit into. There we are. It's quite literally what you see is what you get. It's very simple yet time-consuming work. You just need to be very careful, very precise in what you're doing. Right now as well, I'm trying to get the edges square, so it's easier for me to do the inlay work when I get to that stage. I'm actually about to wrap this episode up, so I thank you for watching. Please hit that like button, because it does help other people finding this video, and YouTube's algorithms like that sort of stuff in the first place. And I very much appreciate it, of course. If you like what you see, subscribe. And there's going to be new videos every single Friday. So yeah, I think that's about that. I'm going to get this video to render and take the dog out for a walk. Alrighty guys, see you next week. Bye bye.